All right, folks, welcome to this episode of What's Your Emergency? Joining us in lockdown, perpetual lockdown so far, is my good buddy and co-host Justin Short, the Happy Medic. How are you this morning, sir?
Live outside of studio. I'm doing very well. The hair is on point, sir. You do not have a COVID cut.
No, not yet. The wife keeps pushing it,
not yet.
I'm staying strong.
Come to the dark side.
I did that once. It looked terrible. So here's what we're doing today. Like we talked about in the opener, there would literally have to be two of me so I could be beside myself. I am extremely excited. I've never been more excited about an interview in our almost 2 years of doing this podcast. We have Joe Newman, author of Raising Lions, on the show today. Joe, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming on What's Your Emergency? How are you?
I'm good. I think I'm doing, I'm doing better than everyone else. I hate to, I don't want to rub that in, or maybe I shouldn't say it, but a lot of people need my help. I'm safe. I have work, and for me, I think those are two important things. I have work, I can help people, and I'm safe. So that's good.
That ties in nicely to our kind of focus on first responders, because Justin and I have said a number of times during this shelter-in-place business is we're very blessed. We're lucky. We continue to get to go to work, and we don't have to face that particular struggle. And then, the introvert in me, the last 6 weeks have been absolutely magic. I go to work, I come home, and I'm good. That's all I have to do. So it's incredible. But a lot of people are going through a lot of struggles, not just with the requirements of shelter in place or dealing specifically with coronavirus, but they're now sheltering in place with their families, which include their little ones. And you wrote the book, I talked about Raising Lions. So before we kind of jump in the thesis of the book, tell me what a lion is, or who a lion is.
Yeah, so lions are just strong-willed kids who are probably a lot more interested in the power than the approval in any social dynamic. Okay, and when I say raising lions, I want to raise lions. I like lions, but at the same time, it's like they can't be raised by sheep. So if you're trying to raise your strong-willed, tenacious, lion, and you're doing it with just talking kindly about things and hoping they're going to respect all your needs, good luck. And I think Jason, I think you know what I'm talking about. It's like,
I was going to say, even
100%.
Even that sounds familiar from my observation point way over here. And it's interesting, Joe, that you mentioned that you can't approach a lion like a lamb, right? You can't go in and, I understand your feelings, and it's not necessarily the the helicopter parenting or trying to be their friend, but there's a completely different dynamic at play here with these strong-willed children. We've always talked about MClet number 3, and I know we won't go into too many details. But where did all this come from? What's your background? Were you a lion? Did you have lions? Where did you get into all this?
Yeah, so I was sort of the poster child for ADHD before it was ADHD. They literally studied me as a child at the National Institutes of Health and Johns Hopkins University. So, at one point they even said to my parents, can you bring him in so we can study him on the weekends? And my parents were like, I don't know. Well, and they said, well, we'll bring him in. We'll see if he liked it. Well, it turned out I loved it. It's sort of like being in a science fiction movie with all these adults, and they're putting all things electrodes to your head and showing you psychedelic movies and trying to trick you into things. For a tenacious, hard to control 6-year-old, that was paradise. So, I guess I started off as that kid. They ended up medicating me when I was 7 in 1970. And so, I know that mind from the inside, and I know what it's like to be in a class where 90% of what you hear from the teacher is corrective, negative messages about what you shouldn't be doing, despite the fact you actually know those things, but that's still not stopping you from doing them.
What is it about that last thing you just said? You know you're supposed to do things, but it doesn't stop you. Is that a wiring thing? Is it a brain chemistry thing? Or is it a personality makeup? How does that work?
Or all of it?
Or all of it? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I like Justin's answer in that there's a couple things going on, right? So one is people tend to be, you're going to be born neurologically a little different than other people. And some people have a more lion nature. I had a girl in my book who was sort of featured in it, and her father was a very serious, very aggressive competitive athlete. And it was like, oh, we know where she got it, so there's a biological component. And, and I think I had that, but then there's also a mindset that can be overblown and developed from given too much power. And I think developmentally, children like conflict. Most children, they don't mind conflict. They learn through conflict, and parents misinterpret conflict as something to be avoided, as conflict means that their need is not being met. When actually, conflict is often just an exploration of who has the power here? Do I have power? What do you like? Is the world safe? Are you going to take control of things, or can I take control of things? So, there's a natural tendency some people are born with, but that's exacerbated by sort of a cultural shift that puts too much hands in the power of children. And I don't have a problem giving them a lot of power as long as you know how to exert your own in a way that's healthy and keeps things in balance.
That really leads nicely into my next question. My biggest aha moment in your book was reading the 3 stages, going from dependence to omnipotence to interdependence.
Yes.
Can you explain, just kind of a nutshell Reader's Digest version, what each of those is and how to kind of figure out where your kid falls? Which category do they fall in? Right.
Yeah. So, and this is what I did in the book is, after years of kind of doing the method intuitively, I'd been reading all this, developmental theory, psychoanalytic theory, and it's very dense. It's hard to get through. And in the middle of this very tough case, things kind of clicked and those pieces fell together. And I made a simplified model based on established theory of building 3 stages of development. And I call it actually the first stage of oneness. Although dependence is not a bad word, but oneness, omnipotence, and interdependence. So you can imagine like a sphere. And in that sphere is your sense of oneness. And initially, there's just the one sphere. And the child, if he's nurtured, if he's taken care of, if she's, given all the things she needs, that sense of oneness becomes very strong. And mom and dad are part of that oneness. They're not separate beings. It's like that first year of life, you see a very blissful, happy child who will walk to the edge of a counter if they see you on the other end of the room, and they know, you're going to do the pro football style run across the room, diving catch before they hit the floor. And that's funny and that's relaxed, and they don't have too much worry about that because you're part of them. It's all one thing. And then somewhere between 10 months and 14 months, they start to realize, wait a minute, he could decide not to catch me. He might not get up. We're separate, and this awareness of separateness. So now that one sphere has become 2, and but they really don't know what you are yet. They don't know if you're like them. They don't know if you have power. So there's a big sphere, which is themselves, and then there's this little sphere. And their number one and first response to that is, oh, I better get control of this. And so the terrible 2s begin, and that's all of a sudden your kids have tantrums about the weirdest things. And it's like, really? I'm pretty sure they don't even want that, but they're having a giant tantrum about it. Mm-hmm. That's because it's not about the thing. The tantrum is about who has control. Can I control you? When I control you, then I'm safe. Now, if parents set boundaries, and they set those boundaries in a way where they assert their need and they hold that boundary, and they do it hopefully without negating the child and without sort of heavy punitive or corporal punishment, then what happens is those 2 spheres start to grow to equal size, and you move from omnipotence. Omnipotence is when there's one big sphere and they realize you're outside and they just want to control you all the time. They want complete control. They want to be God and they want to negate you. And if you don't let that happen and you hold that boundary, gradually they learn who you are. And initially you had a basketball and a ping pong ball, and gradually you move to 2 basketballs, 2 things that child holds. That's interdependence. They realize we're connected. We have different interests. Myself others, those needs conflict, they're held in tension. And that development from that omnipotence, where there's the one big sphere and these tiny other spheres that they're obsessed with controlling, to a balance where they recognize you have power like them, but they feel recognized in themselves. That balance, that tension between those two things gives rise to emotional regulation, gives rise to a real ability for intimacy, recognizing somebody like you on the other side, for impulse control. Okay? It lowers anxiety. It makes a feeling of connectedness. It gives you deferred gratification. And so that tension is important. And that tension, when it's in a healthy way and neither party is negated, and you have these two, that's lifelong mental health. And so mental health is mutual recognition when that's internalized. So that's the model in a nutshell that it's sort of distilled.
So Joe, I've got a quick question for you, MC, and then I'll let you get back on here. But for someone who's looking back now, I've got a almost 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I can look back and everything you're saying makes perfect sense. Maybe someone who's a new parent or about to become a new parent is listening to what you're saying, and okay, I can keep an eye out for these things. But MC, it sounds like you had that golf ball and the basketball going on, and didn't know what to do with it. And then how did you come across? Did you find Joe's book? Did you find Joe another way? How was it that you were able to figure this out in the middle of what we can easily describe as complete and total chaos?
One of the first things that Joe said was the strong-willed child. We basically did a search. I've read every freaking strong-willed, explosive, insert negative label here, child book that exists. Joe talks about the terrible twos. Well, we had the terrible twos, terrible threes, the fours, the fives,
the unreasonable fours. I remember those.
Oh my God, it's
been
a struggle. There have been many, many, many nights where the wife and I are reduced to tears. It has affected it certainly affected my job because I'm bringing drama. We always tell cops, firefighters, paramedics, don't take work home. Well, you also don't want to take home to work. So I got to focus on
tough.
It's real hard. And so it's affecting my mood at work, which, as you can imagine, if I'm dealing with a bad guy and I think to myself, oh, this is excellent, I get to exercise some demons on you, sir. And that's not healthy either.
Right.
That's bad.
That's bad. So I think Katie was, where I remember exactly where it was. So we have this Mightier tablet. Joe, have you ever heard of Mightier?
No.
So it's a tablet that comes with an armband that monitors your heart rate. And it's a screen-based thing, which is ironic. We'll get to screens later. And it's it's a game. And as your blood pressure goes up, the game gets harder. And when the game gets harder, the screen kind of goes all red. And this little creature comes out, and it teaches the kids strategies, deep breaths, clenching and unclenching to bring their heart rate down. And then once they get below, insert number here, they can then resume the game. We literally, and this is not a joke, we've tried everything we can think of. And the latest thing prior to Joe was this Mightier tablet. It was on a Facebook group for that technique that somebody recommended Joe's book. So, of course, the wife looks it up and 57 seconds later has the audiobook. And then I bought the audiobook, and then I bought the physical book because I'm a visual learner. So I listen on the way to and from work, and then I read, and then I highlight and all that. You know how I learn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that... But actually dovetails nicely into a question, because the book opens with a great correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. It's Madison. Was it Madison?
Yeah, Madison.
So it opens with a scenario with a little girl named Madison, and the picture that is painted was one that, as I'm listening to it, I'm trying not to crash because I'm weeping openly in my car, because this is MClet number 3. This is my youngest kid. And Madison was having a fair to say, Joe, a nuclear level meltdown when you cross paths with her?
Yeah, they were happening kind of regularly at that point.
Yeah, yes. And when I'll give you my nuclear level meltdown with MClet number 3. We're talking about hitting, kicking. Actually, this is what she did to a chair recently. We have a wood chair. If you're watching on the video, she threw the chair down and it broke. Trying to bite, screaming. I literally, when she's in a meltdown, I have to put earphones on because it's physically painful. And we were at our last straw. So the book opens with Madison, and Joe comes in and starts to interact with her using this protocols that he talks about all through the book. And we're not going to, spoil the entire book. Suffice it to say, it was a tough thing to listen to because we had lost all hope. We had lost complete hope. Our experience with our youngest has, and Justin, obviously know this, living 1.5 miles from us, we will often take 2 cars to go to Justin's house because inevitably MClet number 3 is going to lose her mind and I'm going to have to take her home because I don't want to ruin the entire family's experience, but I'm not going to leave her like that. I'm not going to let her ruin everybody else's thing. So I would bring her home and it would ruin the entire night into the weekend. This is so hard to talk about. I love my kid. I mean, I would kill or die for her. And I have told her more times than I can count, I will never stop fighting for you. I will never, I don't know if that means anything to her, but it meant something to me to say it. Joe, do families that are struggling with lions, do they have to have a nuclear level issue before they can apply these strategies and protocols that you design to improve that not only their lives, but obviously the life of their child as well?
No, that's a short answer. But and I also will say when I first wrote the book, there's a book came out 10 years ago, and the subtitle was Saving Our Children from Behavior Disorders. Now I changed it 2 years later, and the reason I changed it was, first of all, I self-published the book because the publishers didn't know what to do with it. It was 2010, and bookstores were closing like 2 a day. And then I noticed that the people who were buying the book were just regular parents and regular teachers. And I had a woman come to me. I was a school board member where I'd spoken to school, and she said, "You need to change the subtitle of your book." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, my friend gave me your book 3 months ago, and I refused to read it. And I thought, well, my kids don't have behavior disorders. Why would I read this book?" And I put it off, and she said, "Did you read the book?" And I said, "No." And every week she said, "Did you read the book? You need to read the book." And I kept saying no. And 2 weeks ago, I read the book, and I thought, this describes everything I'm seeing with my children. So the thing about the book, honestly, is that it's at the front lines of working with the most difficult kids that I think you can learn the most about culturally what's happening. Culturally, there's been a whole shift in all of our parenting. And it's not like there's just a small percentage of children who are suffering mental health issues. It's all over the place. Kids are on antidepressants. Kids are taking more stimulation medications than ever to focus. There's mood regulating drugs. There's all kinds of things going on because the mental health is starting to fall apart. And so what I recognized in Madison, that's what I call the book, I realized was the result of a cultural shift. Now, that's not to say that parenting in and of itself is responsible, because I think, like in your case, you got 3 kids, and only one of them got into this cycle. Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's a reason for that. And I think that cycle happens, and then you end up with essentially like what I call a samurai. Like she's emotionally operating from the same place and the same existential sort of dilemma of a 2-year-old in the Terrible Twos, except now she's smarter, stronger, more articulate. You've got a samurai 2-year-old.
She's like the $6 million man.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
and there's a reason that cycle happens. And when you understand that, then the protocols make sense for getting them out of it.
You know, it's funny because you talked about mental health issues and antidepressants. And earlier I had mentioned we tried everything. And I did not want to be the dad. Working in law enforcement for 21 plus years, everybody's on something. Everybody. It's crazy. And I didn't want to be the dad just like, all right, well, let's just medicate her. And I got to a point where I'm like, I literally don't know what else to try. We need to try. We need to do something else because I'm trying to be a good dad. So we did medicate her. And I'm not going to tell anybody else what to do with their kid. However, what I will say is my experience. I read your book, and the wife read it, listened to it as well, and we both agreed, nope, we're done. We're done with the medication. And after following not only the steps in the book, but we've worked with you outside of the book as well. And my God, I cannot thank you enough. We have seen vast improvements. That doesn't mean life is all roses and rainbows. That's just life, man. I mean, she's had a couple of breaks today, and it's 11:30 as we're recording this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But she's handled them really well, and one of them included an 8-minute break. But she is much more well-equipped to emotionally regulate that what you've talked about than she ever had been before. So unfortunately, we started doing all this stuff about 2 weeks before the shelter in place. So Justin hasn't been able to see the difference in MClet number 3 at all. Not even a little bit.
I wanted to jump in here real quick, MC. I think you and Joe might be using some inside language. What is a break? Now, when I hear you say she needed a break, I think timeout, but that right. Is it? What is that, Joe? What is a break?
So that's a brilliant question because actually in the book, it says timeout because I wrote it 10 years ago. And I since changed the language just because most people do timeout. It's sort of like saying, what kind of pet do you have? I have a mammal. Okay, that doesn't narrow it down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I do timeouts. Well, a timeout is like saying, you have a mammal for a pet. It could be one of a lot of different things, some of which are nuts to have in your house. So, so what I do is a very specific process where I do teach parents to have their children stop, move, and sit down and still themselves. But that it doesn't include any isolation. It doesn't include any judgment. It doesn't include any moralizing or naming of the negative behavior. It actually includes doing the opposite of all of those things and doing it in this very clear, predictable way where the child can conform to something that helps them gradually and not even over too long a period of time. I think Jason will learn to regulate. And and the more they do it, the more they become self-regulating. And the more you learn to speak their language.
Yeah, so my daughters went to a Montessori school for a number of years, and I remember the older one came back. She must have been 7 or 8 years old. She was starting to get frustrated, and she says, "I need to do a hookup." And she went in the corner, and I'm thinking, what are you hooking up? Is there stereo equipment? What's going on?
I'm glad you went there because I'm like, what's happening at this school?
But she folded up her arms in a certain way, and she got down in the corner, and she took some deep breaths, and she completely changed her mood. And I watched that, and I thought, number one, love the school. Number two, I need to take notice of this technique. And then the younger one picked it up from her. So it sounds like that was a type of break.
Yes.
But it was something over just, she started to get frustrated and immediately jumped in with that trigger. So it's good to hear that is somewhere on that spectrum of timeout break. Right. Like you said, it needs to be organized. It can't be, why are you so mad? You need to go in the room. Like my generation was told, go to your room.
Yeah.
There was nothing to do in our rooms.
Don't happen in isolation.
Now the entire world is in their room. Right. And there's so much to do. Or
I've been in my room all day.
Yeah, they're avid readers, so they're like, fine, I'll go to my room and read. That sounds like fun. So there has to be something different. It sounds like in the book you structure that differently, or you tell us how to structure it so that it's not punitive, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And part of it is that you want to because the way that most people understand to do a timeout, they're using a method of reward and punishment. And this is the punishment part.
Mm-hmm.
And what I teach parents to do is move away from punishment. A lot of people have this idea in their head, and I kind of get it, but they think that all consequences are punishment. Well, if you step off the roof of your building and gravity pulls you to the ground, was that a punishment? No, that was an effect. So I think we have to differentiate between, as parents, you have to create effects for causes so children learn. It's how I learned. I was completely out of control, had very little self-regulation until I went out into the world and I experienced the effects of my actions, and I didn't like them, and I wanted a better life. And gradually I had to sort of reparent and rediscipline myself to move to a different place.
I wonder how much, MC, of this book, and I think I'm definitely going to have to pick it up, would be applicable for supervisors in public safety. Because a lot of times,
Gary, take a break.
a lot of times we do get these subordinates that start getting frustrated and they get angry and they go in this spiral, this feedback loop that just can't be broken, and we have to jump in with authority, example. We can't, it is the kinder, gentler fire department, but we can't really jump in and it's okay, Gary, I'm going to pat you on the back. No, Gary, you're outside of protocol. Your attitude sucks and you're going to hurt people. I think I'm definitely going to have to read up how to put these paramedics in a break.
I get people now and then who say, I love your book. It's been working great with my kid, and I just started using it with my ex-husband. Or I did it with my boss. And people come up with very creative ways, because it's really about human relationships more broadly. It's just how to apply that. It's not something that's just for kids. It's really about how human relationships and motivation work.
It really is. That's an excellent underscore right there. It really is about relationship. When we spoke yesterday about the biggest issue that I was personally having, and that's something that I believe you called active disengagement. And kind of to pony on the last topic we were talking about, the reward versus consequence, I had a predilection to over-explain. Like, I would straight stand on my soapbox and give my soliloquy about why you should listen to Dad because he knows things and he's older than you and he's a smart guy. So blah 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 blah.
In one ear, out the other.
That's right.
Completely. And the second biggest aha for me was when it said both in the book and literally to me, she already knows. So why are you? You're being condescending. And like that's not my intention. I'm trying to connect with her and, bring her in and positivity, team positive. And you're like, no, shut up. Stop talking. Give her a break. She already knows. Even if she asks, why am I taking a break? You can say something to the effect of, we'll talk about it after your break. But you do not engage. This is not a debate. You need a break. Take it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I mean, that literally blew my mind. So, Joe, it kind of explained what active disengagement is, because your website, raisingalliance.com, has videos and has some amazing examples of what that means. But for our audience, can you explain real quick what active disengagement looks like?
Right. So, I think you summed it up well. It's like you got on a soapbox and you would lecture about why she should do this. In a sense, you're communicating like a preacher, but you're talking to a little scientist.
Oh, yeah.
Like a scientist who's collecting data on what works and what doesn't work. And she's like, yeah, you might not like it, but it works for me and I'm going to keep doing it. And so there's a completely missing each other language-wise. So scientists want data. They want to know what happens. So you have to respond in a way that lets them build a model about what works and what doesn't work. And that will motivate and regulate them, and get your personalities out of the way. Because the other thing is, you have a scientist and who's also a lion. So a lion wants to show you they have power, And so if I say, Samantha, I need you to take a break. And no, I'm not going to do it. You can't make me take a break. I'm saying, you're right. I can't make you take a break. But In 15 seconds, it becomes longer. I'll let you decide. So I'm also disengaging, kind of saying, look, I'm just administering cause and effect. And so when I say active disengagement is that if you're too attached to them succeeding by doing the right thing, you're showing no faith in their ability to figure things out. Mm-hmm. You're communicating a condescending attitude, and you're bringing anxiety to a moment where they're actually going to learn something. Okay, sometimes a kid needs to cross the boundary and lose time off their PlayStation, which they really cherish. And that happens in this gradual way. And instead of trying to convince them, hey, don't you want to do the right thing so you have your such and such time? You want to really have the confidence where you go, look, I'll respect your decision, but as long as you head down that road, gradually this thing you don't like accumulates. If that's all right with you, that's all right with me. So that's the kind of detachment that we're children, because children have this strong sense of themselves, and those children will respond to that. They go, okay, now we're meeting eye to eye. So, and you still have all the power. You're the parent. But you just have you focus on the things you actually have power over, and you let go of the things you don't.
That's tough.
I was going to say, man, that was real easy for you to say, man.
Now, something else I want to jump in here, Joe, because you're talking about a parenting strategy that kind of goes against what I originally thought as a dad. Like, no, I'm the dad. You're going to do my stuff.
Yeah.
What type A firefighters and cops have that approach? I'm sorry. I don't understand
these personality traits. But one of the biggest challenges we had was not only watching our friends go through this experience, but then Saturday night comes along, and now I'm dropped in to be, the one that's got to enforce the rules for the 3-year-old, and I don't know the techniques that Jason and Katie are deploying with MClet number 3. And so I'm trying my own thing.
Yeah.
Is the break in consistency of application dangerous, or do you have any tips or resources for folks like Jason who are going to take this process and, go to grandma's or go to a friend's house for a sleepover? How can we prepare other families for what's about to happen?
Well, first of all, let's see, let me start by saying, children act differently in all kinds of different circumstances. So if you go to any middle school and you watch the behavior problem kid in one class, he might be an angel in the next class. And he might be just a little rambunctious in the third class. And because they're adapting to the system of interaction, they're building models. Most of those kids that are difficult are not the same kind of difficult with all kinds of different people. And so, at home, you might have a daughter who's really willful and really defiant and will throw a giant tantrum. But when she goes to school, she might be like, there's a different set of rules here. If I throw tantrums, the other kids don't like me and they think I'm weird, and I'm going to hold that back. The rules are different. So they're sort of like they're moving from playing hockey at home, where checking and cursing are part of the game. Maybe an occasional fight is you turn a blind eye to tennis, where if you do any of those things, you're out and you're not going to come back for a while.
Now I'm imagining full contact tennis. This could be very interesting. So it's fascinating, and something else that you said earlier, it struck a chord. But then when you just described how they're going to these different places with different inputs, the little scientist is observing what works and what doesn't. So that makes perfect sense. It's like you know what you're talking about, Joe. This is great.
I'm holding in my hand here something that Joe actually made specifically for the wife and I and MClet number 3, and it is a protocol that when this happens, this is what you do, and you really cop-proofed it. I mean, anybody can follow it. It's not difficult. The hard
shapes
part
and colors.
No. So if I was going to make one critique, Joe, maybe send along some crayons that I could either use to color in or eat. Either one
firefighters.
is. Yes, for the firefighters.
We need shapes and colors.
Absolutely.
And we need the crayon. Yeah, but you've got a rule book for consistency,
yes,
right?
Exactly. And you talked about, Justin. We oftentimes we'll do a date night, and your kids are old enough now that they can just kind of hang at home. Mine are getting older, and we've done that a time or two, but, still occasionally they want to have sleepovers. And if they come, if MC number 3 comes to your house, once all this nonsense is over and we can really talk more at length about this, if you were to tell her, Lydia, it looks like you need to take a break, I would be willing to bet a significant portion of money, because the rules are different at different households, and you're not dad, but you're Mr. Justin. Mm-hmm. She'll go park her backside on the nearest chair and say, I'm ready. Go ahead and start the timer.
Yeah. And
that will be the end of the issue.
That's what we've seen is in a lot of the applications we've been successful with. Well, it's our rules. You have to follow our rules if you want to do things at our house. And she seems to understand that for the most part. Now, when your family is in our house, that's a completely different dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to those days to really taking this protocol mobile and being able to be in different spots, be it my dad's place up in Washington, say, hey, you need to take a break. Mm-hmm. And if we're out and Grandpa's there and he can say the same thing, and getting everybody on board. And Joe, you talk about this in the book quite a bit, is when you go into a school, for example, and the principal and the teachers, everybody kind of needs to be on. If you got one outlier who's like, well, I'm not going to do that in my class, that's the weak link in this amazing chain. So I think consistency really, really is the key. And again, we're not perfect. I grit my teeth this morning when we had the 8-minute break. That it wasn't fun, but I reminded myself, nope, disengage. It's all good. And I said a couple of things to her. I wasn't, condescending. I wasn't explaining, but I'm like, hey, you know what? Because she says, Daddy, I'm ready. And she's crying. I said, you know what, honey? You finish your crying. It's cool. No worries. I got nowhere else to be. No. When you're ready, you let me know when you're calm. I'll start the timer. Worked like a charm. I mean, my God, it was amazing.
Yeah, and that can be very challenging just for any parent. But when you start introducing shift work or 24-hour shifts, where now you can't be a team at home and dealing with things, that to have a plan and something in writing, when I was growing up, my dad was a fireman. MC, I'm sure you had the same thing. When you were in trouble, it was like, when your dad gets home tomorrow, you're going to hear about it. And it was 12 hours of absolute fear that when I come home from school and that truck's in the driveway, I'm going to get an earful about what's going on. But they have to be on the same page about enforcing the rules and enforcing some of these, for lack of a better term, policies that your family has set forth to address this. Otherwise, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. And I remember how well that went.
You do love policies. I know you do.
I do. If it's in writing and everybody agrees to it, we just do what the thing says and everybody's fine.
There you go.
It solves so many problems just to get everybody on the same page. I went into a school once and I was doing a teacher training, and they said, can you read the program that we've been using and then kick it off by sort of talking about that and transition, because we want to move to your program. And I read the program, and I read it a couple of times, and I broke down almost a flow chart of, all right, so this is what you're supposed to do in this situation, and then do this, and then do this, and then do this. And I figured out in any given situation of conflict, they were asking the teachers to decide between doing one of 65 different things. And I went and I said, look, is there anybody who's good at this? Because I'm not that smart. I need something straightforward. I need a clear map that I can rehearse and people get on the same page. And, initially when I wrote the book, I thought those clear maps were for the kids, but actually it's for the parents. The parents have a clear map. Everybody calms down. Mom and dad are on the same page and not arguing about how they put together a script. So that script is sort of, I've been evolving the process for 10 years, but I want parents to have a really clear roadmap where, they're literally, they can do line 1 through 6 of the steps. And if they're frustrated, they can look over at their wife and go, you ready? And then the wife nods, you step out of the room. She picks up line 7 and finishes it. That's how clear I want it to be. And when it's that clear, people calm down and you can take a lot of the emotion out of it because you're not making it up. You're not flying by the seat of your pants. You're sticking to something and you're letting them adapt to something that's a little more predictable.
Yeah, the tap dancing aspect of it prior to what we're
There's
doing
tap
now.
dancing and all this? Jeez.
Not anymore.
No, not
Hold
yet.
on.
No, now it is a
Let me order some
well-oiled
shoes.
it's a well-oiled machine. I cannot recommend it enough. And Joe, we're do the big reveal. Spoiler alert here. You've agreed to do an amazing giveaway for us. And usually when we got people on and they've got a book, they give away a couple of books, signed copies, whatever. And you took it to the nth degree. And correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure I get this right. A 60-minute group coaching call for 5 families. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's insane. That is
Yeah,
insane, guys.
Like now and then, since the COVID and the isolation, once a month I do a free Q&A, and there's somewhere 50 to 100 people in there, and I answer questions. But I thought, let's just do something for families as first responders and families that are,
That's awesome.
And this is a way to give back. But I'm going to limit it to 5 families so that people can get a lot out of it. And maybe I can help them develop a home program and get enough to completely apply the program, or at least get a good start on it.
Yeah, because this is definitely something that is not one size fits all. This kind of customization with an expert, guys, it is invaluable. I mean, you can go online and do some research. Oh, this prize that we're giving away has X value. This is going to change your life. Put a $sign on that.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I wish we had discovered you
10 years ago.
ages ago. I mean, I can't even imagine the level of peace we would have in our home today. And every day is getting more peaceful. I don't come home and this is not a joke. I don't come home and literally find the wife weeping in the bedroom because she's had an absolute garbage day. Yeah. That's not something that happens anymore. And I don't come home angry and ready to fight with insert person here because I'm anticipating there being problems. I stopped calling home a number of months ago, because if I called home on the way home from work, that was my thing. I would call up and be like, "Hey, I'm on my way." If the wife answered the phone like Ross from Friends, "Hello," like, oh man, the rest of my afternoon my evening is gonna be terrible.
Now all of a sudden you're stopping to run errands on the way home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, finding reasons not to go back.
No. I thought you were talking about swinging by Hess to pick up beer.
Need it at $5 refills.
$5 refills. That's right.
$5 refills.
So the URL for the giveaway is going to be live as when this airs. It's wyeradio.com/raising-lions. That's wyeradio.com/raising-lions. We will do just the same kind of giveaways we've done in the past insofar as how to gain entries, et cetera, et cetera. Everything will be explained on that page. It's going to run for 1 week. So you'll have a week to enter. You can share it, get more entries, all that kind of good stuff. Joe, I want to respect your time. Thank you. God bless you, like literally, for being here this morning. I know you have a new course coming out. You want to pitch that real quick? Right.
Well, the Montessori Foundation kind of found my book about a year ago, and then I've been doing some work with their schools, and it's a very progressive, forward-thinking organization, and they're always looking for new ideas that can help their teachers and give them another perspective, and they like this is another perspective. So I'm doing a course with Tim Selden, who's going to sort of be my sidekick, and even though he's sort of the wise elder of Montessori, he's the man. But we're going to do a course starting Tuesday, the 28th. If you sign up late, you can watch the course, but it's 8 weeks, 90-minute sessions where I'm going to take parents through the whole shebang, and it's very reasonable. For less than the price of an hour of my time one-on-one, you can get 12 hours with this group, and it should be very exciting. So you can go to raisinglions.com and click the workshops section and find it there. And my Instagram, which is at Raising Lions, there's information there and the stories, and I've got a YouTube channel if you want to watch videos. But the course is starting Tuesday. It's going to be exciting. I don't know when this is airing. But
we're probably going to have this be our very next show. So this will come out on the 29th.
okay.
So one day
So
after,
boom, go now.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so you can still sign up in that week, and then you watch the recorded first 90-minute one, and then you jump in for the live ones as you want. And then if you're busy when the course is on, you can come in and pick it all up and join the conversation afterwards.
Joe Newman from RaisingLions.com. You guys can go and jump on, register for the class, get that stuff. It's also important to remember, guys, that this isn't something to keep hidden. You are not going through this alone. You are not the only person suffering with these things. So please enter the contest. See if you can get some of Joe's time for free. If you can't, sign up for that class and go through it. I can't thank Joe enough, number one, for being studied as a child. That could not have been easy. But also, MC, for you literally opening the book of your life and sharing it with not only our audience, but the greater world in an attempt to help other families. And that's what this show is about, is what's your emergency? My emergency is my third kid is literally driving this family nuts.
Right.
And in comes Joe, and things are getting better. So like we do in the 3 disciplines, everybody, you've got an issue, seek assistance, apply the method, reassess, and see where it goes. So, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. MC, thank you and the wife for opening up. It's powerful.
Cheers, buddy. I appreciate it. And, you said Joe comes in. I pictured him descending from the veritable heavens on a cloud.
No, he's in a golden chariot with a lightning bolt.
Can I at least surf in? I'd like to surf in.
Sure.
Right.
You know what? That's perfect because he surfs in and he surfs by and he's like, go take a break. And I think that's what we need to do, MC. So again, guys, WYEradio.com/RaisingLions is where you can go to enter the contest. If you're listening to this in your feed a long time ago and the contest is gone, you can still go to RaisingLions.com and find out everything you need to know.
And if you go to if you go to the show notes, we will have a link for Raising Lions for the book. You got to pick it up. If you're having any issues with your kid, man, this changes everything.
It's on Amazon. You can get it audio or paperback.
Perfect, Joe.
And I'm working on the second book. It's in the works.
Oh, you shut your mouth.
Are you back on when you get the second book?
Absolutely. If you need a launch team, you sign me up, man.
I will.
I will sing your praises from the rooftops.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Cheers. Thanks again, Joe. Have a great day.
Absolutely. It's been loads of fun. Thanks.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Be safe.
Be safe.